All right. What's up, Arsenal crew? Happy Friday. Back here with Vincent. A few things to go over today. So, we're going to talk about a little bit of the CrossFit quarterfinals. The fitness world lost a real legend today in Louie Simmons. So, we'll talk a little bit about him and his legacy. Question of the week that somebody posed to Coach Eric, is why someone might be why their aerobic capacity might differ across a different movement like running, rowing, or biking. So we'll get a little bit about like why that might be, or why you might be a good runner, but you might not be a good rower or a good biker. And then we'll go over programming for next week. So let's dive in. Vince, I know you got through most. Did you get through all the quarterfinal workouts?
4 out of 5 down. So the only one I have left is the so-called sprint workout, which is a sprint for games level athlete. For me, it's going to be 10 nice set squat snatches at 185. So I'm excited for that one. I did the same thing last year, kind of left the more sprint style heavy barbell Olympic lift workout for the end. But yeah, they've been good. They've been all good tests, all but the second workout. I'm super happy with how things have gone. But yeah, they've been fun. I'm sure I'm going to be feeling 120 lunges tomorrow and 128 wall balls that I did today.
And you almost stood up a 287-pound clean?
Yeah, so got underneath a 287-pound clean, which would have been a 12-pound PR, but just didn't quite get it all the way up, which kind of sucks. So I think I'm going to do that one again tomorrow morning, just because why not? You can't really do worse, and it's who doesn't like to lift weights for 30 minutes and just max out 3 lifts.
Yeah, it's just an excuse for you to lift weights again. Might as well go for it.
Yeah. Plus, I figured the overhead squats are a good warm up for the squat snatches I'll be doing.
Yep. And then I know Sam Singer bench pressed her PR, which honestly could not have been better timing, since we just got done with a bench press cycle in build.
Yeah, she was pumped. I know she actually, that was perfect. She PR'd her bench by a lot. I don't think she had like a relatively recent 1 rep max bench, but she smashed that. And then, we both smashed overhead squat PRs, which is another lift that we don't generally do very often. But both of us put up way higher than we had logged in Sugar WOD for that lift as well.
So talking about movements we don't do very often is kind of a nice segue into Louie Simmons, who died today. Because for those of you who don't know who Louie Simmons was, he's a founder of Westside Barbell, which is almost undisputedly the strongest gym in the world. And if there is another gym who could dispute that, chances are that whoever runs that gym came from Westside Barbell. He essentially he invented the conjugate method, or like what you might know as like Westside, the conjugate method. But really, it was it relates, like that kind of thinking of training really relates to CrossFit, because one of the like main principles behind conjugate or Westside is that it is constantly varied, right? The idea being that like if your competition lift is a back squat, you're not going to do back squats all that much during training. You're going to do a variation of it. You might do a box squat, right? You might do a pause back squat. You're going to get as many variations as you can of a different lift, so that it translates and gets you stronger to your main lift, rather than just trying to get stronger doing that one lift over and over and over again, right? And if we look at like what we do in CrossFit, like there's a reason why when we PR these things, we're like, man, I haven't done that in a long time. It's like, well, because you don't have to do that thing over and over again in order to PR it.
Yeah. And I think he was really eye-opening for that exact reason, just like you talked about. Like, I want to be able to, well, I guess, strongman, like 1,000-pound deadlift is like, this like dream to chase almost. And, how do I get 1,000-pound deadlift? It was, I need to deadlift 3 or 4 times a week, alternate between sumo, traditional, yada, 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 deficit, and he kind of realized, like, let's back this up. There's a lot more that we need to train than just the deadlift, so introducing all of that stuff, I think he was, the pioneer to, move forward with, no, volume isn't always better. Better is better.
Yeah, better is better, right? And especially in like the main lifts, he was like, the volume. There's a very specific amount of volume that you can't go over it for your main lifts, right? For whether it's in a max effort day or in a speed day, which is another really interesting concept that Louie Simmons popularized, right? Was the idea of accommodating resistance, like using a lower weight, like it might be 40, 50, 60% of your one rep max of a particular weight, but adding resistance with bands, resistance with chains, right? So obviously as you get high, so if you're lifting a barbell off the ground like a deadlift and you have band tension, obviously the band tension is going to be lightest at the bottom and heaviest at the top, right? It's going to be fighting against you. Or if you're using chains, it's not fighting against you, but it's still going to be lighter at the bottom, heavier at the top. So you have to learn to be fast throughout the entire movement, right? Because I think he said you can't lift the heavy weight slow, right? And a lot of times we think we're moving slowly when we're doing these max effort lifts, but our muscles are firing very fast.
Yeah. And I think it can even go further than that. As some of prior to really getting involved in, functional fitness, I was my primary exercise was running and marathon running. And, as I was growing away from that, I decided that I was going to run one last marathon. I was going to train for it, but I was going to train differently. So I hired a coach. I was working with, someone through Travis Mash, who is a descendant of Louie Simmons and Westside Barbell. And, to an extent, he even, took a lot of Louie's methods and pushed them into the Olympic weightlifting world. Mm-hmm. And my whole final training cycle, I only ran 3 days a week, and I utilized a lot of band and speed barbell work in my training. And, I didn't PR my marathon time, but I was only 4 minutes off, and I ran a significant amount less than I was running in my previous training cycles. So, I think his impact reaches way more than like, oh, well, I don't really care. I'm not a power lifter. He's influenced so many people. And like, again, who would have thought like, oh, Louie Simmons impact a runner's training? There's probably not a ton of runners that he affected, but myself being one of them, like, I stuck with some of his methods in a marathon training. So again, his reach and impact is just so large.
Yeah, right. And the marathon training is like, yeah, those techniques that Louie, popularized, like they certainly helped. But I think that marathon training was also a product of like your training with CrossFit, right? And functional fitness. Don't sue us, CrossFit. We're not a CrossFit affiliate anymore. All right. So Rosa, if you're watching, just leave us alone. Right. But the idea being that you can still be fit without actually going and running, the idea being that like, yes, you're 4 minutes off your marathon time, but how much stronger were you then compared to when you PR'd your marathon?
Oh, so much more. And, I also was recovered the next day. I didn't feel like I got hit by a car. I think I might've gone for like a slow jog, a couple miles the very next day.
Yeah.
Whereas, a lot of times you feel crushed that day, that night. The next day is even worse. And then maybe 48 hours later, you're starting to feel like you can do something again.
Yeah. So speaking of running, right, one of the questions we got from you guys this week is why might somebody be a good runner and struggle with their endurance on the bike or the rower? Was that pretty much the gist of it, Vincent?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, why, the question was why might I be a strong runner, but I suck on the rower or bike? Or why do I tend to be one of the better rowers and I am slow when it comes to running?
Yeah. So where do you want to start there? I mean, because there's a couple places we can start there. Like body mechanics obviously plays a huge, a big role in that.
Yeah, I think the easiest place to start is just talking about a flywheel.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like the rower and bike have a flywheel of sorts, and it is spinning and you're creating its own resistance. So essentially, the harder you go, the faster that wheel spins, the more force you can produce. Pretty simple. When you're running, you are just moving your own body through space. There's no flywheel. It's not, obviously we can push harder, but that doesn't always necessarily mean that we're staying efficient or things like that. So I think that's one big differentiator to just think about is our body is the machine in running, and we are on a machine when we are using a rower and assault bike.
Yeah, right. That is a very easy explanation for it. And the other thing with that too, like, is, different body types. Like, you could be relatively short and still be a great runner. Like, you can be very fast. Like, you might get on a rower, and just because you can't get that same depth of a pullback, like, you're just going to struggle with someone who's a lot taller than you.
Exactly. So mass and, overall mass and power are going to factor in a lot on a rower and a bike, whereas they don't have an impact on running. That's going to be one big thing. And then, like you said, limbs factor in. The longer your legs are,
Yeah,
the bigger your pool is going to be on the rower. Most likely, if you have longer legs, you're going to have longer arms too, which means your pool is going to be longer than someone that's average height or short. Same thing on the bike. You're going to be able to reach further with that handle on your pools, and you're going to be able to just naturally produce more force through your legs, for the most part, all things considered, than someone shorter than you.
sure. And like, technique also plays a big role in it, right? Maybe, obviously there's a technique to running that you can become a more efficient runner with the bike. Really, like, if your seat is too low, you're not going to be able to create the amount of power. Like, if your knee's not almost reaching full extension at the bottom, you're not going to create power there. But like, rowing's a lot of technique. Like, if you don't have good rowing technique, like, you can have great endurance and you're going to hate rowing if you don't work on that technique.
Right. Yeah. We talk a lot in class about, cadence, and how, unless it's an all out sprint of sorts, that cadence really shouldn't probably be over 28 strokes per minute, at most 30 strokes per minute. And a lot of times people get on the rower and, without even thinking about it, 32, 34. And again, that's not efficient. Whereas, same thing with running. People sometimes have no idea how to pace, right?
Yep.
Especially when we see a distance over a 400-meter run. We go out of the gates hot, and then all of a sudden we get to the turnaround point, because we run on Butler Street, and it's like, oh crap, we're not super close to the gym right now, and I got to try to make it back there. So, a rower is a little bit more right in front of your face the whole time, so it might be a little easier to pace. But pretty similar concepts that, if you go out too hot, if you're going too fast, if you're going too slow, if your stride's too short, all of those things are going to factor in.
Yeah. So how would you recommend getting better? If there's one that you need to get better at, how would you recommend somebody actually getting better at one of those movements, right? Whether it's rowing, biking, or running.
Yeah. First way is, Lizzie's our expert in that department. Go to Burn.
Go to Burn. Yep.
She's literally going to fix your rowing technique, your biking technique. Now that it's getting nice again, you're going to start doing more running intervals. So the easiest way, right? We always talk about hire a coach. Well, you guys have already hired a coach, and she runs a endurance class every Monday and Wednesday. That's the easiest way, in my opinion, right? But, outside of that, if that doesn't work with your schedule and things like that, prioritize those things, right? Like, make sure that if there's a rowing or biking workout, even if you hate it, you're showing up on those days. Because again, all of our coaches are going to help you fix that technique. If you have a question, like, I always wondered, should my seat be at 2 or 3? What do you think? Ask the questions. We'll make sure, we'll correct you. Obviously, if your seat's at 1 and you're, looking like you're riding a chopper with handlebars up top, we're going to fix you. But sometimes it's hard to tell in the moment whether 2 or 3 is right, 3 or 4 is right. So just ask. I think those are the main things that I would recommend. And, other than that, most of the time you love or hate these modalities of exercise. So if you hate them, the only way to get better is showing up and doing them.
Yeah, I think and it takes me back to like the idea of constantly varied, right? With us getting into race season, just with things like the marathon coming up, like whether you're running like a leg of the relay, you're running the half, you're running the full marathon, like going to burn twice a week is an excellent way to train for the marathon without just going out there and pounding the pavement over and over again.
Yeah, and that's the thing, that another piece that we didn't talk about, but running on concrete is harder on your joints than riding the assault bike and rowing on an erg, right? It just is. And, again, we talked about, Newton's second law, force equals mass times acceleration. The in general, the
Bringing out
more
these
weight,
equations here, bro.
yeah. In general, the more you weigh and the bigger you are, the more force you can produce on a bike or rower in general. But guess what? That means you're also producing more force to run, which is why your joints probably hurt a little bit more, right? So, sometimes it's just as simple as, getting used to those things. And like you said, the burn class is a perfect supplement to your running.
Yeah. So, guys, those have been great questions. Like, we really appreciate them because we love talking about these things. So, if you guys do have questions or things that you're curious about, like, please ask the coaches because they will let us know, or just ask Vincent and I because we're happy to come on here, talk about it, make content. So, like there aren't any dumb questions. Like, there's a reason why we do everything, and you're unsure, like, ask, because I guarantee you, if like you don't know why, there's a ton of people at the gym who don't know why. And like, we want to help everybody understand as much as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Vincent, you want to jump into programming overview for next week?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously jumping into April, we are going to kick off next week. We wrapped up our snatch pull snatch cycle. So we saw 3 snatch pulls, 1 snatch, 2 snatch pulls, 1 snatch, 1 snatch pull, 1 snatch. Monday, we're going to find and build to hopefully some new 1 rep max snatches. So we worked on fine tuning that setup, being patient on that pull, getting nice and tall, full extension. We're going to put it all together. We're eliminating the snatch pull. We're just going to get in that good setup, build to some maxes. So super pumped for that. It's always, like I said, like we talked about with the quarterfinals, I don't want to retest any workout besides the one where I don't have to get my heart rate up and I can just try to lift as heavy as possible. Right. So I think it's just fun. I'm excited for that one on Monday for sure. Yep. With a little couplet of snatches and double unders. It's going to get pretty spicy there. Tuesday, we see some rowing and toes to bar with a little bit of running paired in the middle. So we just talked a lot about the endurance. You get to put 2 of them to the test between the row and the run. So again, just like we talked about, some of you will probably be looking forward to those 2 rows and dreading the run, whereas, someone else might be looking forward to the run in the middle and just needing to get through the rows. So great endurance test. Another benchmark in the Chief on Wednesday, which is some intervals of power cleans, push-ups, and air squats. Again, the push-ups and air squats on paper, you're always like, man, this will just be about the power cleans. But those 9 air squats get so crappy. It's almost funny that like the air squats sometimes become almost the worst part of that workout.
Mm-hmm.
That day we'll also carry on with our floor press cycle as well. Thursday we see some deadlifts paired with some burpees and box jumps. So lots of heart rate on Thursday mixed with a barbell. And then Friday, everyone's favorite workout in Fran that we're going to get after, that ultimate sprint style workout, much better than 22.3 version because the barbell stays at that same weight. And we'll wrap up our 5-3-1 front squat cycle with a 1 rep max before that. So actually lots of testing this week, two max lifts, a couple benchmark workouts. So it's going to be a fun week.
It is going to be a really fun week. Yeah.
Yeah. So excited for all of that. Again, like I said, I psych myself out a lot of time on lifts. So if you had to tell me, I'm probably not going to PR any lift next week, but I still love showing up and trying to. I don't think there's anything more fun in the gym than trying to lift as much weight as possible.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be a great week of training, and all those workouts will be live on Sugar Watt on Sunday. So go in, pick out your favorites, cherry pick them, get your classes scheduled, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, and if anyone still having mad about the second barbell, you can join me to do Fran with 115.75 on Friday. It's going to be absolutely miserable, but get used to that heavy barbell, guys.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you. Later.
All right. See you guys. Have a good weekend.